Hello everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to a live stream here on YouTube. I'm going to call this brand new segment Getting Sketchy. And what's the whole idea behind getting sketchy? Well, we're not going to get too sketchy. What we're going to be doing here is doing short drawings and potentially paintings in the future that are timed. So we're going to try to keep our drawing under 30 minutes or under an hour. And during the process, I'm going to share my thought process with you and kind of walk you through the steps of how I would draw a particular subject. And hopefully you'll pick up a few drawing tips here and there, or painting tips, depending on what medium we use in the future. Tonight, we're definitely going to be doing a drawing, and we're going to try to keep this one under 30 minutes. I'd like to welcome everybody in the chat box. I see you chiming in here. I'm going to do my very best to keep up with the chat box. As many of you know already, we do live lessons over at thevirtualinstructor.com as part of our membership program. We've been doing live lessons since 2012. So we've been doing live lessons like this for a really long time. But this is actually the first time that I'm streaming live on YouTube, believe it or not. And the chat box is a little bit different. Things are a little bit different. But I'll do my very best to keep up. Oh, you're very welcome for the Secrets of Drawing course. Thank you so much there, Doom Deer. I'll try my very best to keep up with the chat box, but I'll be honest with you, a lot of the broadcast tonight, I'm going to have my head down. At the end of the broadcast, I want to speak to you a little bit about what we're doing in our current live lesson series. Of course, this is available to members. If you haven't checked out our membership program, you can do so below. I've left a link below. It includes weekly live lessons, kind of like this, but we go a little bit more in depth, and we usually spread those lessons out several weeks. And we do all types of drawing and painting media. And there's also video courses, ebooks, lesson plans for teachers, weekly critiques, and a whole lot of great stuff. So if you haven't checked it out, check out the link below. With that, let's go ahead and get into our drawing for our very first Getting Sketchy exercise. So here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be drawing a skull. Now, don't let a skull scare you. Sometimes people think skulls are scary, but skulls are one of the best things that you can draw. There's all kinds of wonderful organic shapes that are happening here, and just beautiful shadows and things like that. So don't let a skull scare you. Anything that's organic and natural is always going to be a great subject to practice your drawing skills. And we're going to start off with this. And some people might look at this and say, ooh, that skull looks really difficult and hard to draw. But hopefully I'm going to show you a couple of things that will make the drawing process a whole lot easier for you. And that's the whole point here. You can see up here in the corner that we've got our time expired. I'm getting ready to reset that in just a minute, and we're going to have 30 minutes to draw this skull, I think, which will be plenty of time. And up here in the upper left-hand corner, you can see I've got the photo reference for you if you want to follow along with this. Mine, I've already made black and white, which makes things a little bit easier as far as picking out the values, but I've got the color one up there in the corner. Not that much different. But nonetheless, it's still in color. What are we going to be using tonight to do this drawing? I'm going to be using a mechanical drawing pencil, and this is made by Stadler or Steedler, depending on how you pronounce it. And I'm using a 2B graphite in here. So the graphite's rather soft, so we're going to start off with some lighter marks and progressively put a little bit more pressure on the pencil as we go. If 2B is a little bit too dark for you, you can always start off with a lighter pencil, like an H pencil or even an HB pencil, and then switch over to a darker pencil once you get a little bit more confident with the lines that you have in place. The way to sharpen these pencils is you use this little fancy contraption right here. I'm sure I'm going to have to sharpen this pencil during the demonstration, so I'll show you how to do that when we get to it. And I also have a kneaded eraser here. I'm just using a regular old sketchbook pad here. I think this is made by Strathmore. It's probably 70 or 80 pound drawing paper. Not a heavy tooth, but also not very smooth either. So let's go ahead and set our timer and get ready for this. I'm going to swing my big mic around so my voice will get all bassy. Well, probably not that bassy. I obviously can't hear myself here. So anyway, what we're going to do here before I start the timer, I want to break down the process that we're going to go through. When we look at a subject like this, sometimes it can be overwhelming, like I said. Our first instinct when we're first learning how to draw, and even after we've had years of experience of drawing, is to look at what's called the contour lines. And of course, contour lines are the outlines. So it might be really easy to look at a subject like this and say, well, I got to start somewhere out here on the outer part and draw all the lines that I see and then draw all those details. But what happens if we start with contour lines a lot of times is we might start right here on the skull, for example, and we draw all the way around here. And when we get back to this point, we end up in a different location. We're not where we need to be. That's because things get distorted as we move around. When we're drawing from observation, we're clearly looking at the object that we're trying to draw, and we're taking that visual information that we see and trying to put it on the paper, of course. But sometimes when we kind of get lost in a little section, a lot of distortion can happen. And of course, we want to avoid that. So what we're going to do, instead of concentrating on the contour lines initially, we're going to start on the basic forms that we can kind of break this skull down into. And when I say basic forms, I mean really basic forms. And the two big basic forms I see here is basically a cube up here at the top. So if we can imagine this entire top portion right here as being a cube that we're kind of seeing from the side. And then down here on the bottom part, maybe a little bit of a pyramid that kind of just tapers at the end. So more of a triangular form, and I'll draw these on the drawing paper in just a minute when the timer is going. But maybe more of a little bit of a triangular form, maybe a little bit of a trapezoidal shape. Form, I should say form, not a shape. Shapes are two-dimensional and forms are three-dimensional. So, you know, a lot of times we try to break things down into basic shapes, but with something that's a little bit more complex like this, we're going to go for basic forms. So, are you ready? I am ready. Now, before I get into this, let me just mention that this is the first episode of Gettin Sketchy, and I want to do more of these, but I need your suggestions on what you would like to see us do here in the future. What would you like to see drawn inside of 30 minutes or painted inside of an hour? Let me know. You can post your comments maybe in the chat box or underneath this video once it's published. So just keep that in mind, and let's get ready to start the timer. So I'm going to reset this, and let's hope it works. And it works. So we've got 29 minutes and 57 seconds, so the pressure is on. We really shouldn't feel any pressure here. We've got plenty of time to do this drawing. We're not going to get too detailed with developing the value or the shading. We'll add as much as we possibly can, but we're not going to get too carried away with that. So the first thing that we need to concentrate on is the first basic form, and that is a cube. So I'm just going to kind of look at the angle that goes right up the side of the skull, and I'm going to try to copy that angle as best as I possibly can. And then I'm going to draw kind of a diagonal line. Again, thinking about that cube that happens there. And it really is happening in my mind. So I'm kind of envisioning this cube shape here, this cube form. And then we'll go down at a diagonal right here. And maybe over like this. Now, of course, we can always make adjustments to this initial form. And you can see I'm trying to draw here with my entire arm. So I'm not getting tight with my wrist and making little tiny marks. But I'm trying to hold the pencil a little bit further down on the shaft and trying to move my entire arm to make the lines. You'll also notice that I'm drawing several lines. So I'm not trying to get the perfect line the first time. Just kind of trying to find the form. All right, so the next form I see is that triangular, almost trapezoidal form. So we're just going to bring this right down here. And to kind of get an idea of where we are on the skull, this is kind of where the cheekbone is. Kind of the, well, I guess it would be the skull's right cheekbone, but it's on the left side of the paper. And we'll just bring this down here. And then right at the back edge of the skull, we'll just bring a line right over here. Now, over here on the other cheekbone, so I'm kind of envisioning that this is the other cheekbone on the other side, we'll bring that kind of down at an angle, well, almost a straight line, somewhat of an angle. And then we'll go straight across right here. So we've got our basic forms. We've got our basic forms in place. So you can see the cube. We can see the kind of trapezoidal shape form down here at the bottom. Now the next thing we can do is we can kind of figure out where we want to place these eyes. And basically, these are not eyes. These are eye sockets. I believe these are technically referred to as orbital lobes. But we can see this brow line that goes right across here. Okay, and that's what I'm going to concentrate on first. Where is the brow line? And we can kind of decide where we want it to be, but I think it's kind of in this location. So we'll kind of draw where that brow line is with a light, loose line. And then from here, we can start concentrating on the contour line. So now we can start thinking about those outlines. And we're still going to draw rather loosely here as we start to fund the outer contours of the skull. So you remember I said this is the cheekbone on the right side, so I'm kind of envisioning it coming in. And I'm still drawing rather loosely here, even as we're defining these lines. And we'll go ahead and start to draw a shape for the orbital lobe here. I should probably just call it the eye socket. It's been a number of years since I've been in an anatomy class, so I'm not really sure if it's the orbital lobe or not. So I'm going back and forth between the photo reference and the drawing surface. I'm kind of trying to think about what I'm seeing on the photo reference. And I'm looking at the visual information. So I'm thinking about basically the areas where we have some contrast in value. And you know, right here where the nose sticks out a little bit, we can add another form. So let's go ahead, before we start to try to draw this by concentrating on the contours, let's go ahead and draw a form right here so we can get a better idea of where it is. And again, I'm just kind of simplifying this down into somewhat of a trapezoidal shape here, form. I should say form. It sounds like someone's trying to call the studio over there too. I don't know if you heard that or not. All right, so there we go. We've got a good idea of where the front part of the nose is going to be. There's a little bit of a diagonal added here. Looks like maybe the skull goes up kind of at a diagonal down here as well as we get closer to the bottom of the chin. So now that we've got that form in place, we can go in and start defining the contours here. Now, since we're doing a quick sketch here, it doesn't have to be totally accurate, but we want it to be as accurate as possible, of course. So we're trying to get it as accurate as possible, but we're also allowing ourselves a little bit of room for forgiveness. So if you don't allow yourself any room for forgiveness when you're drawing or painting, you are never going to finish anything, ever, because you'll be too caught up in being perfect. And while perfection is good to strive for, you have to understand that you'll never achieve it. So some of the lines on the inside part of the nose there, and I know it's not the nose, but whatever that thing is that sticks out there, it's the nasal cavity maybe. All right, so we'll just continue working our way down here. Maybe we'll bring the eye socket out a little bit further. You can see it protrudes out just a bit. And then we'll bring the cheekbone out just a little bit. So since we've got our guidelines in place, we can kind of make comparisons. And then right underneath here, we can see that the diagonal juts out for the upper part of the teeth. And then we'll just draw a line right across, kind of a curved line, kind of flowing around where that part juts out just above the teeth, and then back around. And it looks like right here, if we kind of just go straight up, you can see we can make comparisons. So at the end of this eye socket, we can see that that's kind of where this little part starts to come up. Do you see that? So we can kind of think about where that is and where we are here. And then we'll just bring that down like that. So that's what you're doing when you're creating a drawing. You're just making comparisons and then putting that information on your drawing paper. And then we have this cheekbone that comes out here. Now you can imagine if we started this drawing by drawing the contour lines, how much more difficult it would be. And you can also imagine how much longer it would take us to do so. We would probably still be trying to figure out the outer contour if we wouldn't have broken it down into basic shapes or basic forms first. And of course, you can apply this concept to anything that you draw. Doesn't matter what it is, most everything can be broken down into basic forms that are easy to draw. These are just basic geometric forms here that we've drawn initially and put into place. Do you have a drawing course, drawing and painting? Yes, we have lots of drawing courses over at thevirtualinstructor.com. You should go check it out if you haven't been there before. For every video, if you've been following on YouTube for a while, we've got a lot of YouTube videos, of course, but for every video that's on YouTube, we have about 3 or 4 more that are not published on YouTube that are part of the membership program. And those could be course videos or live lessons or some of our weekly critiques. But there's a lot more videos that we have over on the website. So I'm just kind of making a basic shape down here for the upper teeth and the lower teeth and filling them in. And you probably already noticed that I'm going to have to extend the bottom of the chin down. It seems like every time I draw a skull, I have to extend the bottom of the chin down. But that's cool, so we'll just extend this down a little bit further. And try to make sure that we're not getting too much distortion going on there. And then we'll just bring this over. Still drawing rather loosely. It may look pretty dark here, but that's because I'm using a 2B pencil. But I'm going to get a lot more darker. I'm going to get a lot darker in just a minute when I feel a little bit more confident about the lines that I have in place. So just looking underneath the skull, underneath the cheekbone right here, and I can see that the jawbone comes down at an angle here. So we'll just bring it down, and it goes down just a little bit further down here before it starts going back up again. So we'll just bring that down a little bit and then let it come back up, just like that. And then the jawbone dips down a little bit and then goes right back up there, and then back around and back down. So as I'm drawing this jawbone, I'm making comparisons between the negative space that's happening right here and this shape that's happening right here. You see that shape of darker value and this shape of darker value? I'm trying to compare this shape in my drawing with what I'm seeing in the reference. And that will help me to be a little bit more accurate with my drawing. Okay, so far so good. Let's go ahead and go up the top of the skull, and you can kind of see how this kind of flattens out and then it goes back at an angle and then over the top, and then it really flattens out down the back. So those angles are kind of what I'm looking for, and if you need to draw them with straight lines, you definitely can do that initially. And I just saw the time. Oh my gosh, we've got 19 minutes left. Are we ever going to get it? Are we going to be able to do it in 19 minutes? I think we are. So we've really only been drawing for 10 minutes, and we've got a good amount of information on here. And I've been doing a lot of talking too. All right, so you can see here that I've kind of flattened off the back part as we go back. It kind of goes right in line with the cube that we drew. And of course, we could be off a little bit with our cube, and we're kind of trusting the cube that we drew. You see the back edge kind of goes down like that, comes back at an angle. Again, just looking at this angle, our tendency might be to go straight down, but there's an angle there. So I'm trying to make sure that that angle goes down. And we've got that angle to help us there by the cube that we drew initially. Okay, so this comes back in a little bit and should kind of line up with this little fella right here that sticks down, and then we've got the bottom portion of the skull that kind of protrudes out and then comes back down and should kind of curl. Let's change the shape a little bit. Should curl just underneath here, something like that. All right, since we went a little too far out there, we'll use the kneaded eraser to kind of clean that up a little bit. Okay, now let's go ahead and draw some teeth and get those in place, and then we'll start kind of dealing with the values. And value is the darkness or lightness of a color. So a lot of people refer to shading, but they're really talking about value. Okay, so I'm going to start with these two teeth right here in the middle, and I'm going to use this little part that comes down right from the middle of the nasal cavity, and that's how I'm going to kind of determine where my teeth are going to be. So, and then we've got another little fella over there, and again, just looking at negative space and the shapes that each one of these teeth make, and of course they overlap the bottom teeth here. So again, the negative shapes that I'm looking at are the little dark areas that happen in between each tooth. So I'm not trying to count the teeth here. I know how far I need to go over with the teeth, and really it's not as important to get the right number of teeth as it is to have the teeth look believable in your drawing. So, you might be tempted to count the teeth. Well, I need 27 teeth up here, which you would never need 27. I think people have 27 teeth. I have no idea how many teeth people have, but clearly you don't need to count the teeth. Don't count the teeth. So that looks all right. So we've got enough teeth in there. We didn't need to count the teeth. I don't know why I'm harping about counting the teeth. But anyway, so down along the bottom, we're just going to kind of use that bottom line as a guideline. And again, just look at the basic shapes and try to use the basic shapes as kind of a guide to make sure that we get all the teeth in at least the rightish location. And again, looking at that negative space in between each one of the teeth. And there's a slight bit of a change of, the teeth kind of go back up in an angle. They kind of go straight across here, and then they start to go up in an angle a little bit here. So we'll try to get that in our drawing. And they get quite a bit bigger towards the back of the teeth as well. So, of course, we need those big old molars back there, and there we go. Okay, so now that we've got all of our contour lines in place, we can get a little bit more confident with the marks that we make from here on out. But before we do, let's quickly erase some of the guidelines that we have down here, because we don't need them anymore, and we don't want them distracting us or taking away from the value that we're going to quickly add here. We've got 14 minutes. Look at that. We've kind of planned out the entire skull in 14 minutes. No problem. And with a level of accuracy, too. So if you thought the skull was hard to draw, when you break it down into basic forms, it's not that hard, is it? Thank you so much for that, Marina. I'm sorry. I know that I'm missing probably a lot of comments that are coming up here on the chat, because I've got my head down and I've got a timer up there in the corner putting pressure on me. But I think I can do it. I think we'll be able to get this skull to a respectable place in the next 14 minutes. So if I'm missing your comments, please forgive me there. But we can draw anything that we want in the world. It drives me crazy when I hear people say, "Well, I can draw this or I can draw that." You can draw anything that you want, as long as you know that you have to break things down into basic forms and shapes and approach it that way. And not only does it help you create an accurate drawing, but it also helps you to draw faster. All right, so a little bit of a change there. So as we get this information down, we can make these changes and make it, as like I said, as accurate as possible, but we're forgiving. We're being forgiving with ourselves, and we're going to allow ourselves to finish a drawing. Now, if you don't make it a habit already, you should spend about 15 minutes or so drawing every day. It's going to improve your drawing skills dramatically. But I'm sitting here talking. I need to sharpen this pencil. So this is how you sharpen it. If you want a longer, pointier tip, you just stick it in the longer, pointier tip side, and then just push the end of the pencil to make it nice and long. And then I'll just stick it in here And by twisting it around, I think I just heard the lead break. I hope not. Nope, there we go. Just by twisting it around like this, it'll give you a nice sharp point to use. I love this pencil, and I love this pencil sharpener. All right, let's go ahead and start enhancing our line quality and start adding some of the shading and the value. So I'm going to go in here and make some of the lines a little bit thicker just to make the skull stand out a little bit more. And line quality, of course, is the thickness or thinness of a line. So by enhancing the line quality in areas, we can actually create the illusion of form and just the impression of light just with line alone. I'm not going to get too carried away with this because I want to have a little bit of time to add some of the shading, but I am going to go in here and enhance the line quality a little bit. Now, you might be wondering, which lines do I make thicker and which lines do I make thinner? Well, it depends on your light source and the thickness or thinness of the actual object that you're drawing. And I did, look at that, the pencil is broken at the end. This is going to be, the pencil is actually breaking. Oh no, I'm so unprepared for this. Because if this lead goes, my time's going to run out. And I'm not going to be able to fix it because I don't have another lead standing by here waiting at the ready. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. All kinds of drama going on here all of a sudden is we're just simply trying to enhance the line quality. You probably can't even tell that that's going on here, but this is, I guess I would have time to put another piece of lead in there. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. So dramatic here. All right, so again, you might be wondering which lines do you make thicker and which lines you make thinner. Well, if your light source is coming from above, like we have here, the lines that are closest to the shadows are going to be the thicker lines. So we have a little bit of a shadow right here along the bottom of the skull, so we can make that line a little bit thicker. And of course, we can have some variation in the line too. So it doesn't have to be all thick and thick. You can just make it get thick and thinner in areas. Hopefully that made sense. All right, let's see here. And down here, this is kind of close to a shadow, so along the bottom we'll make this line a little bit thicker. All right, let's start adding some value and some shading to this skull here. And how much time we've got? 9 minutes. Are we going to make it? I think we're going to make it. We'll start in the eye socket here, the orbital cavity, and I'm just going to start kind of making directional strokes here very quickly. I'm not going to use a blending stump or anything like that. We're going to keep this drawing loose. But we can kind of make directional strokes here to kind of help us better understand the form as well. So even though we're adding shading here, we can make this shading kind of flow along the cross contours of the form of the skull. So we can see inside of the eye socket, our shadow kind of looks like it's coming out of the darkness with directional strokes that flow this way. But we can go back in and kind of put some cross hatching to make the value a little bit darker, but you can see I'm kind of curving those cross-hatched marks there. So it kind of mimics the inside portion of the orbital cavity. All right, we'll do the same thing on the other side. And we'll allow that darker value to kind of come out close to the edge here. We've got a slightly lighter value. And again, we'll go back in and add a little bit of a cross contour action there. And we'll just stick with the areas that are of darkest value initially here inside of the nasal cavity. And then we'll gradually work our way towards the middle values. I'm going to have to make this go down into the pencil a little bit further so I have a little bit more control. Oh, that helps so much. And then we'll let it gradually get a little bit lighter. We want to preserve those light values out towards the end of the nasal cavity where we have those bones that just jut out a little bit. And sure, I could go a little bit slower here, but that's okay. We can work quickly. Now, our light source is coming from this direction up here. So we're going to have a little bit of darker value on this side of the skull. So we'll go in here and just add a little bit of darker value. Again, very quickly, we have a little bit of variation in that value. So we have some lighter areas. And then as we work down that line right down the middle of the nose, we can see that we have these kind of lines of darker value that kind of extend out. Now the nose sticks out, so we have a slightly lighter value down here. And I know this is shading. It's quick shading, but nonetheless it's still shading. And some people get confused when I say the word value, but again, value is just the darkness or lightness of a color. In most every drawing or painting that we create, we want to have a full range of value, meaning that we want to have the darkest darks and the lightest lights and the grays in between. So as I'm shading this section underneath here, I'm thinking about the form of the skull underneath here, and it kind of feels like it goes up and curves around, so I'm making my strokes go up and curves around. So not only does adding the value create the impression of form and light, but also the directional strokes that we add here can also give us a bit of information about the form. So the actual value that we place in these locations can inform us about the form of the object, but also the directional strokes that we make. And I know I just said that, but I think it's important to repeat that, because a lot of times when people are adding shading or developing the value in a drawing, they'll just haphazardly make marks go in all different directions. And we really need to think about the directional strokes that we make. All right, we kind of have a fissure that goes across here. That kind of creates a darker area. I said I wasn't going to add details, but did I say that? I don't know if I said that or not, but maybe I thought that. I have another fissure going up here, and we've got right on top of the eyes, or the eye sockets, we've got a slightly darker value up there as well. So we'll bring that darker value up along the top here. And we have a sinus cavity right here. So we're starting to get some of those details in there. All right, let's make sure that we have all the darkest values accounted for, because I know we're running out of time here. 4 minutes. Oh no. Maybe I'm not going to make it. Oh no, the first hint of doubt just entered my mind on whether or not I'm going to make it. Okay, so that area is completely dark, and we've got lots of dark values that are happening in here. So I'm going to initially fill this in with a pretty solid dark application, and then we'll go in and make some of the areas a little bit darker just to give a little bit of a variation there. Just a slight bit of darker value back here, and right underneath here as well. All right, and even on the jawbone here, really honestly, we would need to, if we wanted to bring this to a realistic level as far as the drawing goes, then we would really need to cover pretty much the entire skull with some application of tone and value, because we're leaving some areas white, but they're really not white. They're really a light value, but not white. But we're going to be having to leave. We're going to have to leave some of these areas just white for this sketch here. And we'll go ahead and drop some of the shadow underneath here. Now, when this timer ends, it's going to make a really loud noise. So I don't know if I'm going to let it end or not, but I'm trying to add this bit of cast shadow down here. And we need shadow on the teeth too. Oh, this is dramatic. We are so close. So close, only a couple minutes remain. Back to drawing loosely and quickly here. But we're still able to get some of those values in place, aren't we? So a little bit of shadow underneath the top lip where it over, or the top tooth. And then we'll add a little bit of shading up here as well, just so we can make this look a little bit more finished. And along the front of the skull here too, you can kind of see the shape of darker tone that happens up there. It's kind of a semicircular shape here. You can kind of see it up there. So we'll just kind of concentrate on adding that little area and maybe a little bit of a transition. Just really quickly. Of course, we could go a lot slower, make circular strokes there, but then that wouldn't get us in 30 minutes or less, like I'm ordering a pizza or something. All right, just a little bit of shadow back here. 1 minute and 10 seconds. You know, we should let the timer go off. It would be more dramatic. So we'll let the timer go off. Just be ready to turn down the volume on your computers or devices, whatever you're watching from, because it might get loud. I know the timer is loud when it goes off. So we'll see. Watch it not make any noise when it goes off. All right, what little bits of shading and value can I add here at the end? A little bit more right here. We're almost there. 13 seconds. Oh, in between the teeth. I pretty much forgot about all the sections in between the teeth. Hope, 1 second. Oh, the time expired. And, you know, just like I said, the alarm did not go off. Thankfully, it didn't go off. It would have been so loud. But I've got to stop now because I said we were going to keep it under 30 minutes. So there we go. And thank you for you guys making the countdown on there. So, you know, the point of drawing is not to do it quickly. But doing sketching, practicing sketching is going to improve your overall drawing skills. And actually timing yourself every now and then is going to improve your speed. Naturally, you're going to get faster at drawing, and that helps a lot of times. And because, for one reason, you learned techniques to help you draw more efficiently. And hopefully tonight I showed you one of those techniques to help you draw more efficiently and even more accurately. So just to kind of review what we did here, we took a complex subject, the skull, and we broke it down into basic forms, very simple to draw forms, a cube and kind of a trapezoidal shape down here on the bottom. We drew that loosely using our entire arm. Then once we were confident with those forms in place, we started adding the contour lines or the outlines. And we concentrated a little bit more on that portion, but we had those forms in place to act as a guide so that we ensured that we had some accuracy. And yes, I'm cheating. I'm adding a little sinus down there. Then we went back after we had the contour lines and reinforced the lines that we had in place by enhancing the line quality, which made the drawing a little bit more interesting and also helped to create the illusion of form and also the illusion of light. Then we went back and added the shading and the value, a little bit more cheating there, just making that value a little bit darker. So I said at the end I would show you what we're working on for our Speed drawing, yeah, it's like real speed drawing. It's not the speed drawing that you normally watch, the speed painting, speed drawing, all that stuff. This is real speed drawing here. So I told you I was going to show you what we're working on right now for the live lesson series, and just to remind you, each week we stream a brand new live lesson, which is part of the membership program at thevirtualinstructor.com. There's a link below this video if you want to go check it out. If you want to, you can start a trial and you can join us for the live lesson tomorrow night. But what we're doing right now is we're working on a pen and ink drawing of a horse, and this is what we got accomplished in last week's lesson. So this represents an hour's worth of work. We basically laid out the form of the horse, making sure everything was accurate, and then we started with our pen and ink applications. We're going to continue with this series tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time live. Hopefully I'll see you there if you're already a member. I will see you there. If you're not, you should check out the program. There's video courses as well, and a whole bunch of stuff over there. I hope you enjoyed this first ever episode of Gettin' Sketchy. I think that we're going to do some more of that here on this channel. And like I said, I'd like to explore with some other mediums as well, not just drawing mediums, but I think this was a fun exercise, and I hope that it helped you out. And I'm just going to take a look here at the chat box one last time. Thank you, guys. Draw an entire skeleton next time. Yes. Thank you so much, Stacy. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Hello, Mexico. I see you there. I'm going to Mexico not too long from now, actually. How much is the membership? There are 2 plans. They have the same amount of stuff. You get the same stuff with each plan. One's a monthly plan. One is $19 per month, and the other one is $97 a year. Both plans start with a week-long trial for $1. Will you be live again this month? Probably so. I'm going to try to do this at least every couple of weeks, maybe every week if I possibly can. The instructor can't speak because he's concentrating. Yeah, that was a few minutes ago. Yeah, okay, very good. All right, I think I'm going way back in the comments. Will you be posting this video on your channel too? Yeah, I think it automatically will post if I did everything right. We'll see if I did everything right. Okay, I want to thank you. Okay, I think I got all the way back to the beginning of the chat. So let me swing this big old microphone out of the way. And thank you again for sticking around during this this first presentation, this first segment. I think it's going to be a very helpful segment for folks learning how to draw. And I wish you guys the very best. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign out for this evening. Good night, everybody.